T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You are now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. Welcome to the Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. I'm your boy, MJ. This is your first time tapping in. What is good? Welcome to such a legendary episode tonight. If you're into chondros, green tree pythons, you're in for a treat. Two of the best to ever do it coming on tonight's platform. And I just want to say, super stoked. Guys, if this is your first time tapping in, do your boy a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell. That way you're on top of every single legendary podcast I drop here on the live. We're at that corner here where shortly these lives will no longer be posted after I do them. In order to get access to the full live, unedited, raw, uncut, all that great stuff, you got to head over to the Patreon. Okay, so if you're looking for exclusive content, if you want to get everything you can get out of this podcast, if you want to tap in with all 165 trappers, you want to be a part of a Discord that's just constantly popping off, well then guys, go down to the very first link in the description below, join the Trap Talk Patreon family. Click that link, join the Trap Talk Patreon family. As soon as you join the Patreon family, you get a link to the Discord, which will tap you in with over 165 trappers. Thank you for all the love and support. I really love my trap family. I got to say, it is growing, always growing, and man, we're loyal. Thank you so much to each other. I appreciate everything that I get out of this. And also, guys, if you want to see what I got going on other than podcast stuff, if you want to see what animals I work with and where my passion's at with the reptiles, head over to my Instagram. Very active on Instagram, Trap Talk God 619, and then go to the podcast's pages, Instagram page as well. Trap Talk Reptile Podcast on IG. Shout out to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, show me some love. What's good, Facebook? Head over to my Facebook page, Trap Talk Reptile Podcast on Facebook, and give me a like and a follow. If you're a Facebooky person, then yeah, that's the best way to be on top of things. And then, like I said, also before, I have another YouTube channel out there, guys. The Trap Vlogs on YouTube. Another great way to stay on top of what I have going on in my own collection, availability, all that great stuff. Okay. That's where you can catch that at the Trap Vlogs. And I put out a vlog every Friday. Okay. So tomorrow I'll be dropping a vlog, 7:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I don't miss. All right, guys, listen, a little bit of a crazy announcement. I got to say, half the slots are filled, first and foremost. And basically, it's open to the public in a sense. But then again, if you are going to tell me that you have 60-gallon glass tank containers to put these bowlins in, denied. It's not going to work. But guys, listen, if you're feeling lucky, okay, if you're feeling lucky, and if you love bowlins like I do, the unicorn of snakes, all right, then let me know. Myself or Joey, the Chondro Kid on Instagram, all right, $200 could get you a pair of bowlins, believe it or not, okay? And we're doing 100 slots total. So 100 slots total, 2 raffle tickets per person, all right? And good news is we just added a second and third place prize, all right? So we're going to make this as interesting as we can. But my boy Joey decided that he is, and I want you guys, I'm going to wait a little bit to tell you what it is, but I'm just letting you know that there's going to be a second place prize, which is fucking sick as shit. And there's like the Boo Boo Award, which is kind of like your money back, but plus a little bit more. You know, we're working out the details, but we're going to make this fun because I'm telling you right now, you're never going to see a raffle like this ever again in the chondro game, or excuse me, in the reptile game will you ever see 2 bowlin pythons being raffled off. And I'm vouching by Joey. These are well established. These are 100% going to thrive and everything else. Okay. But that's why it's important that the person knows what the hell they're doing before taking something over, like before winning something like this. So hope to God there's no unlucky winner out there. I mean, there's no wrong lucky winner out there, but best of luck to anyone. Like I said, half the slots are filled. Hit me up on IG, or Joey, Chondro Kid, Trap Talk God 619. And Why does my phone always do this? It just randomly starts playing my podcast. Anyways, all right, guys. I do want to say thank you now that I got all my shameless plugs out the way. I do want to say tonight's episode is brought to you by one of the best, in my opinion, on YouTube. One of the best in the reptile game, period. My boy, Gary Shavino. Shout out to GS Reptiles on YouTube. Please subscribe to my boy Gary's YouTube channel. Amazing content. He just went ahead and put out a recent video, top three ways to get a chondro or emerald to eat. And I got to tell you right now, man, that the knowledge behind this guy is second to none. I want to say thank you so much, Gary Shavino, for being a part of this. And I got to say, go to Instagram as well. Give him a follow. One of the best in the game. Thank you so much, Gary Shavino. I also want to say that tonight's episode is brought to you by Sim Containers. #1 sim boxes in the game. I'm telling you right now, if you got eggs, put them inside of a sim box. Less steps, less stress. If it's a sim, it's a win all day, every day. Thank you to sponsors. I love you guys. Appreciate all of the support. Early birds, I know you guys are here. It is on and cracking. If you're in the live, if you're in the super chats tonight, guys, if you think that tonight's episode deserves a super chat, or if you have a topic or anything, guys, drop some super chats. Okay, let's get the super chats cracking for these two, especially if you have a good topic to bring to the table. But my outline's pretty respectable tonight, so that's all I got to say, man. What is good? Oh wow, we got global trappers in the building already. The homie Valhalla Serpents, Norway. What's up, dude? Another Norway, dude. Wow. Europe's in the building right now. Peter in the building. What's up, Peter? Thanks for tapping in. 2 Patreon members. Appreciate you guys. Trap Talk Patreon members all day, every day. Row 5.0 in the building. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Mark Curry Reptiles also stepping heavy into the chondro game. Mad respect. Good luck. Strap up. It's going to get heavy, buddy. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. I appreciate you. The homie Eclipse, another Sweden player in the building. What's up, player? Thank you so much for being here. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. The homie Julio Fulio in the building. What's up, Julio? Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Justin Campbell in the building. Trap Talk Patreon member. Big homie Shane, Ricky, Bobby, SRT. What is up, Ricky? Bobby, SRT. Hey, thank you for your support, dog. Honestly, you're a real one. Eden's Den in the building. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Bruce Carpenter. What a guy. Bruce Carpenter. Shout out to Bruce. Bruce is something else. 1776 Exotics. Big Mike. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Another guy who I feel like he's going to love tonight's episode because green tree pythons, ball pythons, such a combo for this guy right here. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day, may I add. OG in the game. Appreciate you so much. And the Patreon family. Reptile in the building. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Piyush Patel in the building. What's up, player? Oh, look who it is. It is the mayor. Holy shit. Bill Stiegel, ladies and gentlemen. Mind you, Bill wouldn't miss this episode. As you just said, Maxwell, GOAT status, Mendez, mentor status to the mayor. Can you believe that? Did you even know Bill Stiegel, the mayor himself, had a mentor? He does. It's Marcial Mendez. And yeah, shout out to the Lost Boy DM group chat on the Instagram. I seriously, one of the best times I ever have is talking to those guys. Scale Fins and Feather. By the way, Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. And Bill's feeling giving. He's going to drop a super chat tonight. All right, here we go. Scale Fins and Feathers. Homie Josh, Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Jaffe, what's up? Canada's finest. I like this guy. Always like this guy. Jaffe's a good guy. Thank you so much for tapping in, Jaffe. Appreciate you. I hope your chondro is going well. This guy recently just got into the chondro game, and I hope everything's going well for you, Jaffe. Jaffe knows the real when it comes to this shit, and that's why he's tapping in tonight's episode. Appreciate you. Trademans, Exotics. Respect to this guy because he has Socrates' production in his collection for what I know. I don't know what else you got, man, but definitely want to tap in more with what you have going on. Appreciate your support. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. May I add Elite Exotics, the homie John in the building. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Big Diego, my protege right here. Got to have you come back down, big dog. Appreciate you so much. Give this guy a follow. Cruz Family Constrictors. You know me, Diego. Pandemic Pythons. What's up, Pandemic? Thanks for being here. Catfish Slayer all day, every day. And we're going to end this shit in style. We're going to end this with Nate Dogg, the homie Perel 33, but also Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Oh, wait, hold on. I got to end this in young OG style, man. Aiden Bradley, one of the youngest, heaviest hitters in the reptile game. Breeds monitors, breeds green trees. This fool is the man. Had him on the show. And what a way to end the early bird shout outs with the homie Aiden Bradley. Guys, listen, it is game time. I got these two on the other line. I hope you guys are ready, okay? Like I said, my boy Forrest up top, I know he's listening. I know he's like, damn, man, way to go, MJ. Got Marcial and Greg. Listen, if you remember Forrest specifically said on multiple podcasts, his favorite green tree breeder of all times is Marcial Mendez. May I add, he's gave mad props to Greg Maxwell. So this is a very special podcast to me, and I bet to a lot of others, man. But it's happening here. Coolest reptile podcast in the world. Are you fucking kidding me? Episode 337 coming at you right now. Elite green tree python. Okay, / ball python talk. Let's go. Chee! You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes,
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Maxwell Mendez, Trap Talk. What is good? How are you guys doing?
What's up? How's it going? Hey, Greg.
It's going
Hi,
good.
Greg.
Good to see you.
Man. Yeah, likewise.
You guys can hear it. Can we all hear each other okay? I know we just had sound check, but now all three of us are together. Everything sound okay? Can you hear us good, Greg?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Yes.
All right, man. Here we have it. Now, okay, first and foremost, let's just get into it. How far back do you two go? I want to know.
I think I met Greg at the Pottstown show. You and
Phil Black.
maybe Tom Phillips at Pottstown, like 98.
Yeah.
And then I met you at the Daytona Expo that year or later the next year.
Wow.
Sounds about right. Yeah. And Phil Black would have been there too.
Yeah. Remember Phil?
Hey, Greg,
Yeah.
I'm gonna nip this in the bud right now. I think because you've been hanging out for so long in the background, you might need to go out and come right back in. It's gonna reset your connection. There's a little bit of a lag, and it's gonna help you out like immediately. So just go and exit,
Okay.
come right back. Yeah, I'll see you right now. Wow, based off sound check, I thought it was gonna be you, Marcial, but here we are.
Hey, that's why you sound check, right?
That's why you sound check, man. Hey, I'm so happy to have you here. Listen, it's crazy because people like Greg Maxwell, Eugene Bissett, like, pioneers that have been around in this game for so long, you have like cool stories with. And I think that's why I wanted this episode so important because, at the end of the day too, my biggest love is green tree pythons, but also ball pythons is what made this even possible. And here we have Greg, like now leaving the green tree pythons and going to ball pythons. It's crazy how the world works, doesn't it? Greg, how do we sound now? Everything good now?
I can hear you guys. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Anyways, so yeah, back what you were saying, Marcial, 98, right? 98 is when you really kind of tapped in with Greg and kind of understood what he was working with and whatnot, or did you already knew about Greg before 98?
No, I think we met initially through the kingsnake.com Green Tree Python forum, and then met at that Pottstown, Pennsylvania show. I was late 90s. I was living in Connecticut at the time and driven down to the show, and didn't have a ton of snakes at that time. I maybe had 2 or 3 chondros, and then ended up seeing Greg at the Daytona Expo later that year, and then ended up buying quite a few snakes from him. I say that 3 or 4 snakes from him over the ensuing couple of years, and a lot of these snakes that you see behind me now are 1 or 2 generations removed from those. So a lot of my founder stuff came from Greg.
How does that make you feel?
That's
Greg?
awesome to see the stuff still out there and going.
I got to understand too. You know, let me ask you guys this question. Greg, you could answer this first. Typically, a thriving adult female or male chondro typically should live how long? Like, if everything goes well, obviously no medical issues. Let's just say typical age where is average, you would say would be what?
I would say an active breeding female, 10 to 12 years. Males, 12 to 15 years on average. That seem right to you, Marcial?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I've got that, you know, there are some outliers, not so much with the females. I think 10 to 12 is exactly what I was going to say. I've got one male now, Versace, who's a 01. So he's going to be 22 years old this year, or he's already 22. And he, you can tell he's not eating as often. I don't know how much longer he'll be around, but he was still breeding as of the end of last year at 22. So, I think he's probably sired more babies than maybe any other chondro in captivity. I don't know. I've never really sat down and added them all up, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Greg, I got to ask you, your males for the most part, like, did you ever have any strong males like Versace in your breeding lineup that lasted to the very end with you? My memory isn't what it once was.
I know the computer chondro, the original calico founder animal that Trooper Walsh produced. He passed away, I think, the last year I was in business. He was a 93 animal, and that was 2009. So however long that is.
Yeah. So
he made it a little more than average then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you, I kind of have a breakdown as far as how I want tonight to flow, because I have two of the best, in my opinion, in front of me right now. And there's just so many things. Like, there's stuff that we could talk about tonight, and there'll be like, holy shit, something that could happen within my own experience. And I'm like, well, now I have this to bring up on the next podcast. But, Greg, I recently saw, again, shout out to the sponsor, Gary Shavino. Gary Shavino recently put out a YouTube video. And I've heard him say this before. I've definitely heard him give this advice where he washes off the scent of the pinky, like basically just neutralizes the smell of the pinky, and he would like marinate it with the chick down. But what I'm getting at is, I can't remember what you said on the very first episode we had together, but do you not recommend offering your baby Neo its first meal with chick down? Like, if you could just get it not with chick down, is that preferred, or is chick down beneficial right off the bat? I'm curious.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, that was you, Greg. Sorry.
Yeah. I just say whatever works. The point is that they're getting a meal in them. So I don't see the necessity of using a scent technique if you don't need it.
Yeah.
But the chick down worked so well for me that, I was probably getting, 80% of my babies to take a meal on the first or second attempt, either unscented or scented. It didn't matter to me which it was, as long as I got a meal in them.
Marcial, what about you? Do you normally go straight to scenting, or do you like to just go?
I do.
Yeah.
Just the success rate seems to be your hit rate on the first attempt seems to go up. So I would say, like Greg, probably half of them, just on average, half of them would eat on the first try with no scenting. But if you try scenting, it's more like 70 or 80%. So instead of, screwing around and losing a couple of days, I just automatically go to it. I've never had a problem getting them off of it, or, I've never seen any ill effects from it. That said, I do have it, until I watched Gary's recent episode, I've had a bag just sitting in my snake room of
that scared me, bro.
for 6 months.
Me too. dude. And like in an area where it gets hot, and I'm like, I know
Oh yeah, hot, muggy
bacteria, and I've used it. Like, and the reason why I'm bringing this up too, guys, is because gotta love Marcial and his predictions, right? When Marcial went ahead, Marcial was one of the first guys I glorified and like was trying to celebrate my Neo eating for the first time, and I was like, dude, I did it, bro. 3 for 3. And he's like, congrats, man. I don't know if you had a couple Miller Lights that night, but it was super like, congrats, straight to your prolapse is next. And I was like, dude, that's like, why would you put that evil on me? And I really feel like he was just giving me the heads up, but it happened. That's exactly what happened. I gotta tell you, the first one died because it never had its first shed. Has that ever happened to any of you guys? Has any of you ever had a Neo that never shed its first shed and just died from suffocation?
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, I don't know if it died from suffocation, but I've had them, never like runty ones or, some that maybe didn't absorb all their yolk or whatever the case may be that have, never had a first shed. Appeared fine when they first hatched and never had a first shed, and then, just died.
Yeah, I'm talking.
I've also had them.
Go ahead, Marcial.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish, please.
I was just going to say, I've also had them, not shed. I don't ever try to feed until after the first shed. So I've had some that would go, like I'd wait a week or two past when I had fed the rest of the clutch to try to feed it, and tried, and it would start eating, and then it would shed, a meal or two later. So.
Right. I was going to say, what was crazy about the one that first died on me was the feeding response was just so next level. It was like it kept eating and it was shitting. It was doing everything normal, but just wouldn't shed. It would even go cloudy and then go normal again. And I'm like, what is happening to your skin? Happened about 4 times, and then it just died. I saw at the bottom of the tub, like with its mouth trying to gasp for air. I can only imagine it's choking or something, like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
gotta love it.
Yeah, never had that happen, but it's not surprising.
So then, and I just want to kind of just break down this experience with both you guys on here together. I just want to get your feedback. So that's what happened with the first one. The second one, after its 4th meal, prolapsed, and that's when I went, dealt with the prolapse and put it back in. Waited 30 days or something, or waited 2 weeks. I can't remember how long I waited. It took the next meal and then died. And then shut up, Marcial. And then the one I was very happy about, the one that just looked perfect, the one that was shedding and like clockwork and doing everything it needed to do, it prolapsed at like 6 months. And same thing, prolapsed, waited the time period, got the prolapse in from what I thought, died. And here we are. So is it just one of those things we just throw our hands up in the air, Greg? Do we not overthink stuff like this? I'm just trying to get some feedback right now.
Well, when I was first starting out, I had some of that, same kind of stuff happen. I mean, not the multiple unshed skins, but, prolapses or babies that would eat 6 meals and then you just find them dead one day. And you always freak out and, you run the million questions through your head. What did I do wrong? And, you talk to all the people that are, more experienced than you are and your mentors and everything. And over the years, what I really kind of settled in on is there are healthy, robust clutches, and then there's problem clutches. Yeah. And if your husbandry and your technique is, relatively on point, certainly chondros have less tolerance for husbandry mistakes than other species. But if your setup is basically on point, you're providing adequate humidity, hydration, and temperature gradient and all that, you're going to have animals that are going to die for no reason. And I don't think it's the keeper's fault necessarily. It just happens. I had a clutch hatch out one time, and they looked great. They were all perched in the hatch tub, and every time I would touch one of them with the hook to remove them out and weigh them and set them up, they would go into convulsions and die. And the first 2 or 3, I thought,
cigar back on you.
What's that?
Do the old cigar back on you, where they would like kink up their back.
some of them were doing that, but I mean, these were like literally like rolling around and sucking their bellies in and just die like within, a minute. And it was the second I touched them. It was like they were having some kind of like stroke or neurological, and they looked perfectly fine before I would touch them. And I think every single animal in that clutch died and that way. And I'm just like, there was nothing I did wrong. My incubation temperatures were great. It just happens, and when you're a beginner, it's so hard to take that because you don't have the confidence of a few years under your belt of successful hatches and raising up animals. It's so, the natural thing is to beat yourself up and, play 100 questions, but
I mean, but if you do that, you're going to see yourself out, like, because that's the thing. You're going to always beat yourself up. Like, there's this thing
right.
You just can't, like, but that's why I like it. Because it's like almost unsolvable. Like, even when you think you got it, you don't got it.
Yeah. And once you hatch out and raise up 2 or 3 really healthy, robust clutches, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, this, these are challenging animals, but this isn't as hard as I thought it was.
Yeah. I mean, Marcial, overall, like I said, I know with all your experience, you were just kind of keeping it real with me. But I mean, do you kind of go into everything that eats for you could just potentially prolapse? Like, are you always on edge into a certain point? Like, what would you say that point you can look at it? Go ahead.
I'm not on edge anymore because it just is what it is. You're not gonna change it one way or the other. So, the same thing that Greg was just talking about happened to me earlier this year. I had an animal that eaten 7 or 8 times. It was doing great. That I always check on everything before I leave for work in the morning and clean any dirty tubs or what have you. And I took it out and I bumped it when I was putting it back in its tub, and it just started freaking out, flailing all over the place, mouth gaped open, and came home from work that afternoon and it was dead. And then I had another animal that was in this cage right behind me here now that's now empty. That's same age as these other ones, which is 4 years old now, and totally fine. And came home one day and he was just on the bottom of the cage. No clue what happened. Totally healthy. Had eaten a week before. It's just kind of par for the course when you're dealing with these guys. I hate to say that, because I don't want to discourage people, but it is, you just got to be, you got to be ready for that to happen. They're not like colubrids or ball pythons or, they're definitely not as bulletproof.
Yeah, but Marcial, do you hate to say that? Do you really hate to say that? I don't think you hate it. I think you like it.
I mean,
because it's just like, okay,
it's the truth,
But did it feel good a little bit when I was like, God damn it, Marcial, they prolapsed? I'm not feel good.
No, it didn't feel good.
I feel good, but you called it. Like, it's kind of like, well, I called it. You know what I mean? It's not like, I'm just saying, like, man, I always, my boy Andrew Acevedo, I told him, I always gave him props because like when I started working with like imports and shit like that, like I would tell him what's this on this snake's mouth or something. And he would be like, oh, that thing's done. And I'm like, what? Like, why would you? I'm like, why would you tell me? He would tell me just put that thing in the freezer right now. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I just spent $800 on this, and I'd be like so pissed off. But dude, sure enough, that was the outcome. You know what I mean? It hurts. It's such a stinky thing to like have to accept. But the easier you are just saying, okay, it's gonna happen. It's just going to be easier just to deal with. But Greg, like we were saying, if you beat yourself up over every mistake, the chances of you lasting in this ain't going to be long, is it?
Yeah, you just, it's you have to learn to roll with it. And the hardest thing is to, get to the point where you realize, okay, it's not something I did wrong. Because the first few times, you're just sure it was something you did wrong. And you were asking, like, at what point, do you know you're out of the woods? I would say by the time you get an animal up to 10 or 12 years old, you're pretty safe.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it dies. That's crazy. There's also another, I got to kind of revert back, and I want to say shout out and big, I got to apologize when I need to. Alex Warren, who works very closely to Bill Stiegel, Love that guy, man. But he took some licks this year with the green tree pythons. He was sharing what was happening, and he showed me a female that he had that rolled, and I asked him how old that female was. He was like, it's 10 years old. And I remember I picked up these Miss Willie lines, right? And I was concerned because these are 2011, 2012, so they're over 10 years old, but they'd never been bred before. They'd never been bred. So what's his name? Warren Booth was like, MJ, these things could actually be very prime right now. Because they never bred. So let me ask if anyone out there who's just enjoying the chondro keeping and not in a rush, but they have a female that's close to 8, 9, 10 years old, but never been bred. That's a different story, you would say, right?
Of course. Yeah. The females, if you never bred a female, they would probably live as long as the males. It's the breeding that
wears them out.
That wears them out. Yeah.
I think every female that I ever had that died from some kind of reproductive complication.
Yeah, agree.
And you guys both took the year. Okay, how many of you would always go back to back to back? I think as long as the female was eating and her body shape were what it was, you would still pair that year, or did you guys have that kind of rule of thumb where you'd always give her the next year off?
I think I had several that I did 2 years in a row, but then I would always, give a year off after that.
Right.
Yeah,
Smart.
same. I would say every other year is probably the rule of thumb, but if they put on good weight and they look good, two on, one off can work sometimes also.
Yeah. I just also figured, because I have 2 females that I just bred for the first time this year that are around 7 to 8 years old. You know what I mean? And like, I don't know, you guys would both agree that maturity is always on your side, right? Like if you hold off a little bit, like instead of waiting that 5-year mark, or, even though 5 years is a good time, right? But it's kind of like the more you wait, the better your chances would be. Or do you feel like, nah, that's not really the case? What do you guys think about that?
I think maturity and size, weight, all those factors are always in your favor. Sure.
What about you, Marshall?
Yeah, I mean, my first clutch was with a 3-year-old female, so it can work. But now my rule of thumb is I don't even usually, I'm not trying to feed them, or my goal is 5 years. So I think 4 is kind of the rule of thumb, but I always try to go 5. And you were saying earlier about the Miss Willie line stuff. In my opinion, emeralds are a totally different story. Emeralds, from what I can gather, live a lot longer than chondros. I think there's some like the longevity record is a lot more than the oldest chondro.
I did not know that. And again, Alex Warren,
I think, don't quote me on that, but I think.
You have to be right, I'm sure, because like I said, Alex Warren is somebody who's just geeked out over these chondros, and I'm pretty sure his knowledge is more. It's probably deeper than mine because I try to compare everything like it's the same. So I thought if an emerald's going to live that long, then a green tree should, right? But I guess that's not the case. It's a different species, different animal. It's kind of like how certain breeds of dogs live longer than each other, right? So it's kind of same shit, right?
Yeah, they just are generally bigger, more robust animals than chondros,
Now, Mythbuster on this one. Sticking to locality pairings, you're more likely going to have a stronger clutch to get feeding right away versus a designer pairing. What do you guys think of that?
I would say that's the case in my experience. The earlier years when I was first kind of getting into it, I would do like a designer with a locality. Right. And those were the years I was getting 20, 22, 24, I think was the most I ever got size clutches, all big babies. Nowadays if you get 12, it's like, party time. But yeah, so I would agree with that.
Yeah. What do you think, Greg?
I don't have a ton of experience with locality breeding. The only pairing that I remember that were pure wild caught locality animals was a pair of Arus that I had. Now those babies they have a reputation for being hard to get going anyway.
Right.
And I did have trouble with those babies particularly. I also heard that BIOC animals paired together produce really robust, easy to feed babies. And a lot of my BIOC outcross clutches, that was my experience as well. But, in general, I mean, I have friends that, seem to think I have some kind of magical power to get baby chondros to eat. It's just something that I, develop a knack for after doing it hundreds and hundreds of times. But I never really had all that much trouble with most of my clutches getting them going. There's always a straggler or two, in most clutches that, are, you present them with food and they drop off the perch and thrash on the floor of the cage.
Right.
But in general, I didn't really see a huge difference between the two. But I will agree with Marcial absolutely that I think the more we work on designer projects, we see an increase in, or a decrease rather, in fertility and clutch size. And again, it varies from clutch to clutch. You can hatch out 18 really strong babies out of a designer pairing, and then the next time you get 7 and 5 of them are runs. So
right,
not out of the same pair, but designer type animals.
Yeah, it's not to say you can't produce big numbers with designers. It's just not as often.
Now, Greg, I have to ask you your approach to every, if you could kind of think back to, let's talk about like a clutch you felt like was going to be a stickler clutch, like an Aru clutch. Is your approach to that clutch as far as feeding trials the same as everything else, or do you have a different approach to things that are going to be difficult? I'm curious.
No, I would pretty much approach everything the same. I soaked all my pinkies in hot water. That wasn't necessarily to wash scent off of them, although it may have had that side benefit, but I just wanted to bring them up to a warmer temperature than room temperature, because chondros really seem to, key in on that heat signature. And I would offer unscented. If that didn't work, I would use chick scent. And in the case of a really difficult clutch, I would experiment with other scent techniques, lizard and different things. But I never personally came across anything that worked nearly as good as the chick down.
Yeah, same.
There's people who've done broth too, right? You ever done the broth? Have you ever tried chicken broth or the bone broth or anything like that?
I've tried it all at some point.
Was that the same effect or no? You think that do you think the chick down was more effective?
Yeah, way more.
Yeah.
Nothing else has really ever worked for me, honestly.
Yeah.
I had a customer one time that tried to cohabitate a neonate that I had shipped him with an anole, and the chondro ate the anole. But I never had any success myself using anoles as a scent tool. There used to be a product on the market. I don't know if they still make it and sell it or not, but it was called Lizard Maker. Is that still around?
Never heard of that.
There's another thing out. It's called I think they're called Reptilinks or something, or it's basically a lizard that's been put in a blender.
Yeah. Now this Lizard Maker was like a liquid. You could put a drop of it on the head of the pinky or whatever. And chondro babies recoil from that like it was gasoline.
If you can't.
Yeah, for me, it was pretty much chick scent.
Greg, if you could kind of tell us what was the year you established the most neonates? Like, what was your biggest production? What year was that?
1999, I had 6 clutches. I think my biggest year other than that was 4. I usually average 3 or 4 clutches a season.
And Marcial, you're on the minimal side of things, right? I mean, like it's
yes, not by choice. I think 2004 was the year that I had the most numbers wise. I think I had maybe I can't remember if it was 54 or 64, and that was from 4 clutches. And, you know, back in those days when I had exclusively chondros, and I guess I could, you know, I don't know if I don't feel like I was doing anything different, but maybe I was, you know, giving them just a little bit more attention than I do now because I didn't have all this other stuff. I would have at least 2 a year, 2 to 3. And, you know, these, you know, I'm lucky to get 1 the last couple of years, but I hadn't sold a chondro in 3 or 4 years either. So I've got quite a few, you know, yearling and up animals that I'm, you know, trying to get numbers up. Because if you want to have 3 or 4 clutches a year, you got to have 6 or 7 females that you're trying, you know.
Absolutely.
They're not all going to go for you.
Yeah, Greg, at what point did you discover, like, oh wow, it's probably better to hold on to this neonate before selling it, or did you always knew that? Like, did you always knew that was a smart move to let it age a little bit? You know, because for instance, I mean, look at Marcial. Like, you know, he held on to a lot of the babies, if all the babies, and I mean, now, I mean, do you not? You probably don't regret that at all, right? Are you happy you kept all those, Marcial?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, back in the day, though, it was not as common for people to. I mean, babies were a lot more available than they are now. I mean,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, babies were a lot more available. Now it's become more common for people to hold things back until they change color, you know?
Yeah, in my situation, you know, I was doing this full time. So I had bills to pay. So I couldn't afford to keep back everything. So I would always hold back, you know, depending on the size of the clutch. If it was a large clutch, I'd hold back a half dozen. If it was small clutch, I'd hold back 1 or 2. So I always had holdbacks that I was raising up to sell as yearlings or to add to my breeding colony. So, you know, it was always a mixture for me of animals I would sell and animals I'd keep. You know, one of the things that you know, a difference in philosophy between one of my mentors, Trooper Walsh, and myself, and there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I always noticed that Trooper would sell any animal that he produced that was really unusual. And a lot of his super unusual animals came from parents that really weren't all that unusual looking. And just as a business model, I thought, well, I bet customers would like to buy a really nice looking yearling from really unusual looking parents as opposed to buying a really nice looking yearling from normal looking parents. So my goal was to try to put together a breeding colony of visually interesting animals, and then, you know, hold back animals to sell as yearlings. And so that was kind of my approach. I didn't sell everything that I produced that was really wild looking. You know, I wanted to hold back the more unusual animals and develop those into future breeders.
Yeah. You know, with you, Marcial, what's your game plan? You feel like with all your holdbacks right now? I mean, do you feel like at some point you might let some go, or is it just all for you to kind of just go into a season and just fucking go balls to the wall at some point?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm limited to time-wise to what I can handle. So if I produced 30 or 40 babies, I would sell a few, right? Just because I would have to, you know. You know, I don't know what the end game is. We'll just have to see. You know, the ball python stuff is taking a lot more time now, just because of their, you know, they're just a lot more. I don't know. It's more of a physical thing when you have to clean, you know, whatever this behind me versus the big cages. You know, their population's way more dense. So in a small space, you can put way more ball pythons. So, you know, ideally, I would like to scale back a little on the ball pythons, just keep just my nicest stuff, and work more with the chondros, and emeralds too, which I like just as much. Like this year, I think I've got two emeralds that are gravid for sure, and because of that, I've kind of scaled back on how many ball python clutches I'm trying to get this year. You know, so I enjoy working with the arboreals more if I can produce them.
I mean, because let's be honest, you know, ball pythons are work, and only because the amount that you have on that wall, right? And
Yeah,
and like, you know, I'm not saying that you can't enjoy, you know,
no,
cleaning
it's
up.
still fun, but
It's still
still,
fun. It's just not chondros.
that's right.
It's just like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. And Greg is just getting his feet wet into the ball python game, and like, here we are. I guess we're gonna talk about it. But I got to tell you, you know, like, Marcial, you're coming from a place where a lot of people don't even probably know. They hear your name related to chondros, where they don't even really know that you're not really going hard on chondros right now. Like, you just been kind of chilling out, but you built quite the foundation in the ball python game. And you feel like that's been real beneficial, especially because look how you could kind of re-enter back into the chondro game, right?
Yeah, the last couple of years have been, you know, from a business standpoint, which, I mean, you know, I never got into this to make money doing it, but it's turned into like a nice, you know, it can be, yeah. The last couple.
Oh, no. Don't say
Yeah.
it can be. It is. It's like you literally are cleaning that rack thinking of dollar signs. Every snake is a dollar sign, where if you clean these, you're not selling it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just a different mentality. You know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
You want to hurry.
But
like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the last couple of years, say the last 5 years that I haven't been selling chondros have been from a financial, you know, business standpoint, way better.
Right.
You know, the
Right.
bottom line's way higher with at least the last couple of years, you know, with the way they've exploded.
And that's what makes me appreciate the ball python game. Like, yeah, the work is harder and stuff like that just because of the amount, but man, the payoff, if you stick to your guns and you really hold down on your projects, like obviously we all know Ultramel and Marcials goes together like peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? Like, it's people know Ultramel with you, you know, and that's something that you held down to. And I'm sure, Greg, right now it's the pied stuff for you, right? Like, pied is your jam with your foundation. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I've got a pretty good pied group, and I've got a freeway group, and then I've got a group that's just kind of a mishmash of traits, but I'm breeding for color, yellow and orange stuff. But and I've got some Ultramels too. It's some Ultramel het pieds that I'm inching my way into the Ultramel pied project. Those are one of my favorites.
You got Ultramel pied stuff going? You at all, Marcial, or no? I can't. I don't think you don't have pied Ultramel. Just clown, right?
I've got a ton of double het females that I've been raising up. So I say a ton, probably about 10 or 12 that I produced myself, just from you know, I had a pied and Ultramel sitting on the shelf for a couple of years, and I just, you know, paired them up 3 or 4 years in a row, and kept all the females. So I've got about a dozen females now. And next year or two, I'll look for a super nice male and have a bunch of girls ready for them.
What were you saying, Greg? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you know, it's been really interesting for me being an arboreal guy for all those years, you know, and now getting into ball pythons. You know, a lot of people and you know, I got a couple of good friends that I did arboreals with are now doing ball pythons, and they're like, man, these are so much easier than chondros. And you know, I'm not sure I agree. Yeah, the ball pythons are certainly more robust and easier to reproduce, but it's a lot more work, you know, a lot more daily husbandry. And man, I'll tell you what, getting baby chondros to eat, obviously, you know, can be challenging, but once you get them going, man, you can go through a collection of chondros and feed like, you know, machine gun, bang, bang, bang. These ball pythons, I'll tell you what, man, I did not expect the feeding challenges. I knew that wild caught ball pythons from years ago. Yeah, people were trying gerbils and stuff, you know, but I just assumed captive bred ones were, you know, bang, bang. And I've got about half my collection right now are hitting the infamous 1,000-gram wall, so that they call it. And dude, yeah, it's irritating on feed. You know, I used to enjoy feeding night with chondros, and you know, now it's like, oh man, I got to feed the ball pythons tonight. And I know that half of them are going to reject me.
That's annoying. That's super annoying. Because, you know, you got people like I'm not gonna lie, I don't go through that shit at all. Mainly because I feed live. Do you feed live or no?
Well, I'm switching over in the direction of live. I was talking to my bud Shelby MERSHON a couple of weeks ago, and just kind of bouncing some things off of him. And yeah, Shelby's the man.
Shout out to Shelby.
Shout out to the sponsor, Shelby. And when I got excited when I saw you over there, I was like, oh, what is Greg up to? Hanging out at the homie Shelby's place. But I got to ask you, how was Shelby's place? How's this facility? It's brand spanking new, so I got to ask you how it is.
Oh, it's so impressive. Yeah. I mean, I've been in a lot of collections around the world, over the decades, and a lot of really impressive setups. But man, I'll tell you what, his is top notch.
Yeah,
it's just state of the art. You literally could eat off the floor, and yeah, it's pristine and just so well kept and well thought out, designed. It's a dream setup. It really is. But I was talking to him about these feeding trials and asking him if this 1,000-gram wall is a real thing, and there's a lot of YouTube videos out there about it, so I know it is. And he said, oh yeah, it's a thing. But he gave me a couple of tips, and they're helping. He told me to move some of the animals around a different place in the rack just to give them a different temperature gradient, and give them a piece of wadded up paper to hide under, and then he told me he feeds almost everything live. And I've always been nervous about feeding any snake live prey just from the risk of rodent bites. But I started feeding live about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I have several slow and a couple of animals that hadn't eaten for me in a couple of months that are back on feed now with live. So
it's a game changer. I tried to do it without. I tried to do frozen thawed for the first couple of years, and it's
every time I shake my hand like, this is a waste of time. This is stupid. I just because I tried to be like, let me see if I could go frozen thawed right off the bat, but I'm like, why? I just thought out all this shit for nothing.
Yeah, I would always thaw about half as many as I thought I needed, and just try to do it over 2 nights. And really with the older stuff, it's not that bad. Like babies, once they get to the 200-300 gram mark, I feed all my adults fresh killed. So, but it's easy to get babies strictly live. But once they get to that 200-300 gram mark, where they're like, you pull the tub open and they're right there, they want to eat. Yeah, you just put something in front of their face and they grab it, and then you just kind of get them used to the tongs, and then when you move them up, then they eat fresh killed. But for the babies,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Continue.
I was just going to say, for the babies, getting them started on anything but live is I would almost maybe say worse than chondros. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was feeding my subadults, was fresh killed, which I figured was superior to thawed, because they're warm and
right.
They haven't been in the freezer. But I have about a dozen females right now that are right about that 12 to 1,500 gram a stage, and they just shut off. It doesn't matter what I give them.
Yeah. Well, you'll see. You're about 2 or 3 steps away from a rodent breeding operation, and then that's where the real work comes.
Oh, I'm already breeding them.
Okay.
I've been breeding rodents for a year. Yeah.
Whoa, what's on my computer? Oh, am I good? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you faded out there for a second, but you're back now.
I don't know what's wrong there. Anyways, yeah. Sorry, I just thought that was funny what you guys were just saying.
I don't think that mic is working. Is there another mic that you could have switched to maybe?
Hold on. I'm gonna come right back in. You guys keep talking. Be right back.
Yeah, so I started breeding rodents about a year ago.
Okay. Yeah. I started maybe 8 or 9 years ago, just enough to feed what I needed to feed live. And then I would slowly get them over to frozen thawed. And then when we moved and I got to, build my dream snake room, I built a rodent shed. And then I've been pretty much self-sufficient now for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, 2 years probably. But that's like a whole nother, it's a whole nother thing. More time, more, like you were saying, physically, it's more more work. It's hauling rat food, hauling rat shit and dirty shavings, and it's there's nothing fun about it,
It makes you double think. Like you're like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, don't think I know that. I mean, if I could just snap my fingers and be replace the ball pythons with an equal number or a number that would generate the same revenue as the ball pythons, then I could do away with the rats and only do frozen thawed.
And just imagine if you had no rat chores, dude. Imagine,
oh, dude, it's that'd be a life changer.
I'm telling you, I had
a life changer.
I bred, and not even I probably had just shy of what you had, Marshall. I mean, I had 6 colonies of rats, and a little bit of, I had like a few colonies of ASFs, and my day, I remember at that time I had 1 day off a week, and my 1 day off was dedicated to fucking cleaning all those rats.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like, if I didn't take any breaks, I could get done in 4 hours. But I have to hustle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Marshall, you know this. One thing about keeping rats, it's so satisfying when you're done cleaning. Like when you're done and you sit back and you just smell everything's fresh, eating, drinking, it is a good feeling because that all goes into your snakes. So it's kind of
and then like 12 hours later,
a water bust. Oh, was that at your house right before we went live? You had that flood, or it was during the podcast you had that flood or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, see the water lines. I much rather stick to the water bottles. I don't care if it takes that long.
That's what I have. I just have a 5-gallon bucket. I don't do like just I thought about doing the live, just the tapped in to the water line, but I'd rather fill the buckets up every couple of days than deal with a whole flooded room. A couple flooded tubs is bad enough. I couldn't imagine, coming in and the top tub on your nursing rack get flooded and everything is dead. Like it's just not worth it to me. I'd rather just spend the time filling the buckets up every couple of days.
And we're not even talking about what could go wrong. We just talked about what could go wrong, obviously, right? But we're talking about these damn rat chores, how much they are if everything goes right. But let's talk about there's a fucking problem or a chew out or whatever. It could really ruin your day. You just got to be careful. What's your approach right now to breeding rodents, Greg? I got to ask you.
I'm using ARS tubs systems for both my rats and my snakes, and I've got 16 tubs in my rat rack. That keeps me and my son in rats for our ball pythons. I just started doing some ASFs. I haven't tried feeding them yet. You guys do those?
That's all I have now.
They're illegal here.
I've
never had them.
I work with they're called Kenya River hamsters. So yeah, that's what I work with. Kenya River hamsters are a locality of rodents, field mice. But I mean, let's talk about that, guys. Because obviously, Marshall, that's the unfortunate part that some of these can't be worked with in some states. Are they legal in Ohio? Greg?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, listen, you understand. I don't know if you guys have Whole Foods in your area, but Whole Foods is where you can kind of get the best produce, vegetables. Like we're talking like hippies go to Whole, like it's like the best, no GMO, freshest you can get, right? I'm just saying this ASF might be a version of that to our reptiles. And I don't know how much you know of that, Marshall, but man, ASFs I feel like are like the best diet for any ball python for sure. If we're talking about ball pythons right now, I think ASFs are the best move. If you could do them, you could get away with rats, obviously, but man, do they love ASFs, and man, do they take off on ASFs for sure.
Good to know.
Yeah. So Marshall, get yourself some hamsters, buddy. No, but Marshall, you got mice. Hold on, you got mice and rats. You do both.
Yeah, I do both. Because I need pink mice for the arboreal stuff, baby chondros, baby Amazons. Hopper mice for the emeralds, and then I also start ball pythons off on mice on hopper mice. I'll give them like five meals of hoppers and then switch them to wrap-ups.
You haven't had a clutch yet of ball pythons, right, Greg? Not yet?
Not yet. I have my first females ready to go, hopefully this winter.
Nice. And I'm telling you right now, the fact that you just switched over to live, you're not going to that whole issue with you getting them to stop. That's done. It's a whole game changer, bro. We're talking about your feeding is going to become a lot more enjoyable because it's like, but what I wanted to say though, ASF's not to worry, but with the rat, right? If you were to feed a small rat or any rat with teeth, mind you, these ball pythons are retards sometimes, and they could fucking bite. They could wrap it wrong to where they could just expose like I had a rat like literally going after the eyeball. So if it wasn't for me being there, that snake probably like, and I don't even think the rat was or the snake was choking it. It got like its leg or something, and like the rat had full mobility to just go whatever it wanted to do. So I always have this thing where I'll go crazy, but then I always check back and I make sure. Or I watch the initial strike. I mean, do you watch initial strikes at all, Marcial, or do you just throw it in there and keep it moving? What do you do?
Just throw it in there. You know, if I just so happen to be watching it, you know, like I've seen it because now that I've seen it a couple of times, like their scales are tough, man. Like a rat's got to be able to grab it just right to really be able to eat. You know, like obviously the eyeball would be bad, but as far as just if they just grab a random scale on them, they're not getting through. I've had maybe one snake ever end up with like a blood from a rat, where the rat actually was able to penetrate the scales. Now, if you fed a big rat to a smaller snake, it may be different. But for if you're feeding the right size, they can't hurt them. Now, as long as you don't leave them in there. Now, if the snake is not eating it or constricting it 100%, the rat, we've all seen what happens when you leave a live rodent with a snake for overnight or for too long. So I don't leave them, I have a method where I'll come in, throw them all in there, and then leave the tubs cracked, and then, set a timer, come back half an hour, check everything, so I don't leave them in there overnight. Not anything big, at least, pups or something small. I'm not too worried about that. But anything with size on it, you can't leave them in for too long. If the snake's not going to eat it in half an hour, odds are slim it's going to eat it. So
right, yeah.
How many white snakes do you have, Marcial? Not a lot, right?
How many what?
White snakes do you have? Like
white snakes?
Snakes that are
Zero.
Just white. Okay, so this is where, check this out. I come to realize that you really don't know the damage a rat does to a snake until you see a white snake have all this fucking, like, you see scratches, like you could see, like, you know what I mean, what's actually happening. A darker coloration snake, you're not going to see any of that shit. So yeah, I'm just saying, like, some of these snakes go through it, even though they're eating, they're some are getting fucked up with these lives.
Really?
Yeah. And I'll show you pictures next time. I mean, it hasn't happened a while, but it does happen, you know what I mean? So it just would say, don't ever underestimate a rat when it comes to just feeding live. Even after initial strike, like I'm saying, like there's times where you see it strike and you think it's good. Somehow the snake decides to roll or some shit, and now the position isn't what it was. And so
if I still have the tub open and I see that the rat's head is loose or whatever, I'll just stick the tongue in their mouth, stick the tweezers in their mouth until I know the snakes, they're not coming back.
Have you dude, and you've been bit by a rat before, I'm assuming, right? Have you been bit by
just once, and it was by accident. Yeah, it was by accident. I was trying to adjust the water nozzle. Yeah, it hurts, man. It hurts. It was no joke.
So ASS
right on the fingertip.
Oh, dude, listen, those motherfuckers, man, I've had arguments, like yelling at them, you know what I mean? Like, God damn it, these rats, but the ASS, and I'm not trying to throw this in your face because you can't keep them. I'm just saying, you don't deal with any of that shit, man. Their mouths.
I've always heard they were aggressive.
They are, but they don't have teeth like a rat, so they're not gonna fucking really puncture your skin. It's more like a holy shit, you know what I mean? But they don't make you bleed for the most part. Mind you, if you just leave your finger there, it's gonna go in. But their mouths are way smaller, okay, which really helps when it comes to me tossing these fucking field hamsters inside these tubs. I never turn back. Because that thing's not gonna do shit to the snake. Its mouth is way too small. But yeah, I'm just saying, man, rats could just be no joke. They could fuck shit up. We're talking small rats, of course, or anything with teeth. But I mean, all I'm saying, it's crazy how this works, right? Because you have people in the green tree game who's like wondering, what is it like over in the ball python game? I mean, I've had people ask me this for a long time. What do I do? How do I start off, right? People don't understand, just because there's some thriving and killing in the ball python game doesn't mean it's going to be easy peasy. Like how much are you willing to put into this ball python game? For instance, if you don't breed your own rodents, you better be sponsored or something. You better have some sort of hookup, because how are you going to last without your own production? We're talking the Greg's situation where you don't have a snake that wants to eat, and then you finally go into the room and you're like, holy shit, this snake looks hungry. It's a lot easier when you can just go into the room, grab that rat, fucking throw it in there, and it can eat. You know what I mean? It just changes everything. Live. I mean, like, man. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? It's kind of like, fuck, man, these rats. But at the end of the day, they're a blessing, because, I mean, how much?
It's a necessity, in my opinion. Yeah. It's a
necessity. How much credit to a good breeding season? And I think you always do great with the ball pythons ever since I've known you, Marcial. So all that is dedicated to the rats. Like all that, I mean, without good food source,
where it starts. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, feeding's everything. Just like getting a chondro. Like, you know, you both do food cycling, correct? When it came to the chondros, like there was a point in time where you didn't give it as much, and then you gave it more, right? There was a period when that happens, correct? Even with chondros.
I've never food cycled, but
I primarily use thermal cycling, but I definitely noticed an uptick in the appetites of the females during the initial breeding season. Yeah.
And I feel like that's super important to pay attention to, because that kind of determines the success with breeding. And not a lot of people know that, especially ball python people for the most part. When they first get into it, they just think it's easy as just feeding and pairing. But I feel like it's easy to get that first clutch. That second clutch all determines how you bounce that snake back and how you feed that before you start pairing again, you would say, right?
Yes. The faster you can start getting them ready for next year, the better, you know?
Yeah, but then there's also a period, like if we can even get back to chondros here, right? Like let's talk about we'll have you start, Greg. What was your 101 after a snake laid a clutch for you? You pull the eggs. How soon did you offer that mom a meal again? How big was the meal, and how frequent were you feeding it after the clutch?
Yeah, I would start a female off, with a small meal within a week, especially, if she's signaling that she wants food, she's caught alluring, coming to alert, when the lights go off. Yeah, I'd feed a small meal, and, then within, a half a dozen meals, she's back on normal size prey, normal schedule.
So these smaller meals are being fed more frequently, is what you're saying?
Right.
So like once every week, you would say, or what would you do?
Yeah, once a week. Yeah, maybe every 10 days. I've never been a person to feed my snakes. Now it's different with neonates. I have neonates on a schedule just because I want to get them out of that, initial difficult to feed stage and start getting growth on them. I've got, customers on waiting lists. I want to ship before it gets cold. So that all, thing as a snake farmer is driving that. But with the rest of my stuff, and even now with my ball pythons, I don't have like, oh, it's Wednesday night, I got to feed. It's based on my personal schedule, the weather. If we got 3 or 4 high pressure system days in a row, and then it's going to rain on Saturday, I feed Saturday night because I find the animals are more receptive during low pressure systems to, mating and feeding.
Yeah. I mean, with you too, Marcial, I mean, right off the bat, the goal is to get this Neo out of that phase, right? So is it once a week, or what were you doing with your Neos?
I'm pretty much once a week. Occasionally I'll do, just for babies, I'll feed them I'll do like every 5 days or something. I try to do my work schedule to where, on the weekends, I'm not spending a ton of time in here. I mainly try to do it after work. It's like Monday through Friday, and Monday through Friday, at the red line from, 5 a.m. to 10 at night. And then Friday night through Sunday afternoon, I'll usually take off. And then sometimes on Sunday, I'll, do the rodents or whatever. I've got my son helping me now with the rodents. So that really helps. I get him just doing all the, tub scrubbing and things like that, bringing the food down and, hauling the trash, doing all the stuff. And I just do the stuff that he, that you have to know what you're doing to do and get him doing all, and it's cutting my time in like half or less. So
that's good.
What's
it costing you, Pops? Don't lie to me here. What is it?
20 an hour cash.
That's not bad. That's cool. So, I mean, how many hours then is it taking him per time?
He gets he helps with the snakes too. Same thing. I'll get him going through and he dumps all the water bowls, puts a new one in. And then, if the tub's dirty, he's supposed to clean it. He misses 30%. So he gets, 5 to 6, 7 hours a week.
Yeah. And I just think it's being young, like the attention to detail. Like, shout out to my boy Calvin Garcia. Oh my God, what a guy! But it takes a lot for me to have anyone being in charge of this. And my wife demanded that we go to Jamaica. Okay, so I had to go to Jamaica. I'm not gonna lie, it was a cool time. Food was whack, but whatever. Went to Jamaica though, and I helped. Calvin was in charge, and listen, came back. Everything's alive. You know what I mean? But mind you. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know. I get it. He spot cleaned, but there was a few places where he just left the sheds on top of the fucking, he left with literally dry shit and shed right on top of the rack. And I'm like, why is there dry shed and shit on top of this rack? And he's like, oh man, sorry. I just forgot I left it there. And I'm sure it wasn't on purpose. You know what I mean? I don't think it would. That's kind of a fucked up thing to do, but it's just when you have so much on your plate, it's easy to fuck up. It's easy to forget things. And I always forget, damn, what I do is a lot. I always kind of expect people to hey man, get this down. I got it. But holy shit, this is my life. I'm in here every single day. And mind you, man, my wife is queen of the trap. My wife is the one, because I'm telling anyone out there, if I ask you to come over and hold it down for me, you better take notes. Because if you ain't taking notes, your ass is going to fucking forget. My wife, the reason why she's the number one trap keeper that I have is because her ass has Post-it notes everywhere. And mind you, I love her to death for that. You know what I mean? So, but man, this shit ain't easy, bro. I mean, Marcial, who holds it down for you when you and Laura don't even leave much, right? So it's
we do, but it's for, I'm never gone for a week. We take a lot of short trips. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously, Greg, you got help, right? I mean, when you went through your recent surgery and you were kind of bedridden, you had your wife come through for you, or your daughter. Who was helping you out? I was curious. Remind me.
I'll tell you what, my wife stepped up big time, and just for the record, she is not a snake person, absolutely not a rat person. And for those that don't know, I went through a really, really bad time in December, January, and February. I thought I had ruptured disc. It ended up being an infection in the discs in my back. Wow. And once they found that out, got me on some IV antibiotics for 6 weeks. It cured it, and I'm doing much, much better. But I had about an 8 to 12 week period where I was walking with a walker, and I could barely get to the bathroom.
Oh, so, wow.
Needless to say, my animal husbandry, suffered. It was on maintenance level, but I would, I'm out here in my guitar shop right now. Unfortunately, my rodent room or my snake room is very small. I don't have any place in there I can really sit and have cool snake cages in the background like you guys. But yeah, my rodent room is just down here on the other side of my shop in a little enclosed room. And I would hobble out here with my walker and literally kneel on the floor because I couldn't sit or stand. And my wife would hand me the tubs, and I would clean them and hand them back to her. She put clean shavings in. And then I have to go up some stairs. My snake room is actually upstairs here. And same deal, I would, just grit my teeth and excruciating pain, get through it. And she would, you know, she would not handle the snakes, but she would pull the tubs out of the rack, and, you know, I'd take the snake, put them in another tub, clean. And I told her, I said, now, you're never going to admit this, I know, but I know deep down in your heart, you know, it really wasn't that bad, right? These animals are better than you'll admit, right? Well, she won't admit it, but she stepped up big time. A lot of credit to her. You know, we've been married 42 years, 43 this summer.
Respect.
And that was probably the hardest thing that she's ever been through, you know, in our marriage, was helping me through that and get through the animal husbandry. And my middle son, Dan, who's into ball pythons on his own.
Right.
He helped me a ton too, but he's actually my husbandry guy when I travel. And, you know, like you guys, I don't travel much. You know, I take short trips. I'm not gone, you know, long periods of time. Once in a while, I'll need to be gone, you know, for a year or so. And he comes up here every day, fills up the rats, water buckets, make sure the humidifier in my snake room's got water in it, and spot cleans the tubs. And he does a great job. And I do the same thing for him when they go on vacation and stuff. So we got each other's backs. There's my son Dan, and he's wearing the Loco gray T-shirt there. Nice.
He's a big boy, man. How tall is he?
He's I don't know exactly, but he's definitely taller than me. Now, and that's obviously we were visiting Shelbys, but I was barely back to where I could stand and walk on that weekend.
Wow.
Is that Tom Phillips there with you?
That's Tom. That's Tom Phillips.
Okay.
That's Tom's nephew, Aaron, on the far left, and Shelby in the middle. Then me and my son Dan, and Phil Black's taking the picture.
Okay.
Okay,
Phil was,
cool.
Phil was on that trip too.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. Damn.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I've been doing snakes with Tom and Phil for a long time.
So have they gotten back into it as well? Or did they ever leave?
Oh yeah, Tom Phillips was actually the guy that got back into it first, and then Phil got into it some, and then they said, "Hey, why don't you go with us to Tinley?" This was in October of 2021, and I'm like, "Yeah, I've been to a reptile show in a long time, so I'll go." And to the show, and I came home from the show figuring out how I was going to convert my room up there to a snake room.
Yeah.
I love how that works. If you're a real reptile lover, it's that easy.
Yeah. I had a recording studio in there, and my daughter is the real musical talent, and I'm just an old duffer. She lives in Alaska now, and I really wasn't using the studio. One of those things where, you know, one of these years we're going to do a CD, whatever. And both of us just came to realize it was never going to happen. She's got 2 kids now and, you know, lives in Alaska. So I just made it was a difficult decision, but an easy decision at the same time, to sell off the recording studio stuff and put the snake room there. It was either there or nowhere. It's literally the only place I had to do it.
Yeah, at least you're doing it.
Now, eventually, I'd like completely retire from guitar work and move all reptiles down here, because this would be an awesome building. It's 20 foot by 40 foot, forced air heat and air conditioning. It's insulated. It's great. But right now, I'm still earning a living fixing guitars.
What would be the timeline for that? If it worked out in your favor, when do you think you would want to have everything moved into the room you're in right now?
I'm hoping to transition, like, you know, obviously as the ball pythons come up, the guitars can go down. So it's not going to be a, you know, overnight shutting one off. But over the next 2 to 4 years, I'm hoping to make that complete transition. And if and when I do that, I'll be able to get back into some arboreals, because I'll have the room. Like upstairs, all I have is this room for ball python racks. It's a short ceiling, and it's a vaulted ceiling, so the sides are angled. Then there's this like 3 or 4 foot section in the middle, and I can just stand up and hit my head on the ceiling. So it's a very small room.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Once the day comes and you go move everything into the room you're in right now. I remember you saying you might potentially get back into chondros. Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Just right now, I don't have room for arboreal cages, but yeah, I'd love to get back into some chondros, and it'd be really enjoyable to do it as a side business or as a hobby thing again, and not be counting on green tree pythons for your full-time living is a stressful way to live.
It's unheard of nowadays. Nobody's doing that. I mean, trust me, there's people making money, but I mean, Marcial still laces his boots every morning, goes to work. Like, there's this people who aren't just a full-time chondro breeder out there. I mean, who? I just don't know.
Rico was the last one that I know of. Yeah,
crazy.
Well, and he worked at the aquarium, didn't he?
He did until the the last I'm going to say 5 years or so. He quit the aquarium and just did the snakes full time.
Okay, good for him. I didn't realize that. Good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to ask you, Greg, how would you get back into the chondro game? If we were to speed things up, what would be an approach for you? Like, how would you, would you do locality? Would you get straight back into designer? What would you do?
Well, step number one would be to win the lottery, and step, because just the equipment, cages, that's you guys know it's an investment, but I don't know, I would want to work with some design animals, but I think I would really enjoy working with some more locality stuff too than I used to do. I've kind of been drawn in that direction in my mind, in my heart, to some of the more, what's the right word, naturally occurring color forms, but there'll always be a place in my heart for the designer stuff too. I mean, I see a few of the guys out there producing some just amazing stuff. And yeah, when I see those pictures on Instagram, I'm like, oh man, the memories.
Yeah, I mean, Marcial, to kind of add to that, where do you see the chondro market heading? Like, because there's more people getting their hands on a lot of these snakes or these chondros more than they were a few years ago, and they're starting to get success. Like, I mean, do you feel like
this has been a pretty good year? I think I see a lot of people hatching multiple clutches, whereas the last couple has been seems like, at least, I'm not like super in the know, but just watching the forums and watching the Facebook groups and Instagram, there's been a lot more people with success this year in particular than the last couple, seems like. So I think with more people getting into it and working with them, they're going to get more popular. Right now the market, I would say, is at an all-time high probably for nice babies. And I think the most that I ever paid for a chondro baby was from Greg. Actually, it was right as you were, I think, getting out and selling the business. You had the Dream Calico clutch, and I think I paid $5,000 for a snake from that clutch, and that was the most I'd ever paid. And now that's like, average designer is $5,000. If you want like cream of the crop, you're going to pay double, triple that maybe for a neonate.
Yeah. What do you think of that, Greg? I'm
sorry, what was that?
What do you think of that as far as like the market jump, like the pricing? I mean, that's expected, you would say, or do you feel like there's going to be a time where that even caps out at some point?
I don't know. It is kind of is what it is. It's there's always market forces that are going to set the price on any commodity. Yeah, how much of a demand there is for it, and how much of a supply. And I'm on the other side of the spectrum now. I remember, when I was 8-10 years into it and producing just super nice bloodlines, and my animals were high in demand, and there were always people that were frustrated because they couldn't afford my best stuff. And while I could sympathize with that, it was just like, well, it is what it is, it's
right.
Certain animals are always going to command a certain price. and now the shoe's on the other foot. And, you know, I'm not gonna complain, you know, if when I get back into it, if the animals I really want to work with are 5,000 or 7,000 or 10,000, I'll figure out a way to afford them, or I won't have them. And this is the way it is.
The market sets the price, not the breeder.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Here's the thing, Greg. I got to at least keep them alive first, but I don't mind sending you a chondro. Fuck. just for me to have a chondro in hand would be great. I would say that right now, but mind you, I haven't kept them alive yet. So I'm talking about my own productions. These are great. You know, I'm talking about the ones that Marcial wishes evil on every single time. So, anyways, we'll see what happens with this next clutch. Now, let me ask you this: how much geeking out and kind of just crazy researching have you done in morph market, Greg?
Oh, you know, it goes in spurts. You know, I'll have, you know, 2 or 3 weeks where, you know, I'm like on there constantly, and then I'll get super busy with work here in the shop or whatever, and I'll, you know, be off of it for a while. But you know, some advice that was given to me when I first got back into the ball pythons a couple of years ago was buy females first, and when they're approaching maturity, then start buying males. So sense. I kind of followed that advice. So I've spent this last late winter and spring acquiring males. So I've been on morph market a little more than normal the last couple of months, you know, specifically looking at the genetic combinations I needed in males to go with my females. But I'll be honest, every once in a while I get on morph market and I'm like, enough of these ball pythons. And I go through, you know, all of the categories, all the corn snakes, the, you know, the colubrids. I've always been a sucker for really weird, hard to feed stuff. So, you know, somebody have some weird colubrid, you know, from Venezuela, and I'll be, man, I should get a pair of those. I'll be the guy to make them go, you know. But yeah, I just love all kind of animals, but just herps. And you know, I'll tell you something I'd really love to breed is speckled racers.
Speckled racers. What are those? What's a speckled racer? Sorry.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
They're indigenous to southern.
Rat snake. Wait, it's a racer.
Drawing a blank.
It's like a black racer,
right?
Black racer,
Texas.
coach whip kind of deal, right?
This thing looks fucking cool. This is it.
Yeah. There's like a yellow dot in the middle of every scale, and when they move, they just kind of look green. They're indigenous to southern Texas and like northern Mexico, I believe. And you don't see them around very often. I'm not sure I've ever. Yeah, that's them. I'm not sure I've ever seen any captive bred ones. If anybody out there that's watching this has, you know, access to captive bred ones, hit me up, because I would probably, you know, like sell a kidney to have a pair of them.
Wow, there you go. Heard it from the man himself. Get this guy some speckled racers right now.
I've been looking at those for like decades, but you hardly ever see them around. All the ones that pop up occasionally are wild caught. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, all the chondros all started out, you know, wild caught years ago. But
yeah. So where do you find these at, Greg?
I believe they're indigenous to southern Texas and northern Mexico.
Wow, Mark nailed it. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you, buddy. Mark Hager in the building.
Wow,
all
so right.
These are native to the country. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
I think the larger part of their range is over the border, but they do occur in southern Texas.
Wow.
I have no idea how common they are or rare. I don't know.
I've seen this snake before. Somebody's brought it up. I just forgot the name, speckled racer. I don't know. Marcial. Here's the thing I love about Marcial too. You go to his place, he has Amazon tree boas, which I know I need a podcast with Amazon tree boas. I got you, dude. I got you, and you'll be on it. But Amazon tree boas, he has colubrids. I mean, you like dabbling into some off popular shit too, right, Marcial? That's kind of like your jam.
Yeah, totally. I like a little bit of everything. Right now, I've got Gary Shavino got me into Conicus. So I've got a nice trio of them. I got a guy that is local to me that has produced them for, I don't know, 20 years or something. I mean, crazy, 20 generations. Martin Nowak is his name. Older guy, who's been in the game for a long time, and got a trio from him. So I'll probably breed those. I'm not going to get a ton of them. I'll probably breed them, check them off the list, and find a new home for them. But and then I'm really excited. I've got some Trans-Pecos rat snakes that are now going to be big enough to breed this coming year. So those are the colubrids that I've got right now. Had Mexican Black Kings, got a clutch or two of those, and then sold them. Just something a little different. I've got a pair of Angolan pythons now that are, I think, my female's gravid. So I like having a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
But guys, let's be honest. Nothing compares to chondros. Hate it. Hate to say it.
You're right. Yeah.
Let's be real. Like,
I would agree. Yeah.
Not going to get any pushback from me.
Emeralds are a close second, but I would say chondros are number one for sure.
Yeah,
emeralds. There's not as much. They're all green, white, yellow. There's not as much variability. It's not just about how white can I make them. Chondros, you got blue, green, yellow, black. Every orange, everything in between.
Like it's such a think about the ball python morph world, right? And chondros aren't morphs, but what they can do resembles as close as a morph, right?
Yeah.
And it hangs on a tree, and it's like not hiding in a rock or fucking hiding, away from itself. It's just different, but also comes with the price. That's why it's kind of like there's no perfect thing out there, unless you feel like you're in the perfect world. But man, everything's gonna come with the price. Like everything's gonna come with like holy shit. But that's what makes this beautiful. Like ain't no free rides. No matter what you work with, ain't no free rides.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I always think, man, imagine if I didn't have to clean over 150 ball python stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man. I gotta ask you though, Greg. Emeralds you never been interested in working with emeralds at all, like basins or just northerns, just kind of dabbling with that a little bit.
I kind of got off to a rough start. With not basins, but emeralds. Actually, the first arboreals I ever owned was a pair of what they call them, northerns. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Right. Northerns, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they proceeded to eat readily for me, and then proceeded to regurge readily for me.
Yeah.
And no matter what I did, I couldn't get them to stop regurging. So I had just met Trooper Walsh, did not have any chondros yet, but I knew he was an arboreal guy. So I asked him about the issue with these things regurging and what I should do. And he told me to burn them. And I thought he was joking. I thought he was joking, because I think I paid $800 for the pair of them.
So and they're imports, obviously, right? Imports, they had to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And this was long time ago. And so I excuse me, and he's like, "No, I'm not kidding. Burn them." He goes, "They're it's a syndrome. They're never going to stop regurging." Yeah. And he said, "Yeah, you don't want it passing on to other animals you have, whatever." So I didn't burn them. I just kept feeding them and watching them regurge till they died. So I was convinced at that point that any green snake that lived in a tree was just going to throw up and die. So that said, I love basins, and I would love to get it for Marcial or Gary or somebody eventually. Yeah, just love them.
It's a whole nother ball. Like we're talking about how feeding live rats or live rodents to your ball pythons is a game changer. When you get a United States captive born and bred emerald, you're not dealing with that shit, man. Like the size meals these fucking things can eat is ridiculous. They should not throw up. Nothing should throw up. And it's unfortunate because once they throw up, it's a game over. I mean, mind you, I have to ask you this. Have you ever had a fluke regurge at all? Like maybe because of temperature?
I have, yeah. Babies from feeding them something maybe too big. I had throw up here a couple days ago. It's
It
rare,
was,
but yeah.
and it's fine. I mean, that's like, but that's
Yeah.
not something you, as Trooper would say, would burn, or like like you would
Not
give that
gonna burn it.
Okay, yeah, right. By the
it'll
way,
be fine. It'll be fine.
by the
It'll
way,
be fine.
2023, it's a freezer now, so it's no more burning. Yeah, what a way to go though. That poor snake. Like, okay, let me ask you: do you want to burn to death, or do you want to throw up until you die, or you just like how do you want to go out? It's like holy shit, it's fucking nuts. But yeah, man, definitely consider that, Greg, because like I said, once the time comes. I mean, shit, I cannot wait to get a fucking basin from Marcial. That's one of the guide to get a basin from is Marcial. Because I mean, one of the biggest reasons why I say that, Marcial, is you taking your licks with basins, Marcial. Like it hasn't been an easy ride for you, has it?
It's been okay for me. I mean, I did lose a prime, beautiful female last year before I ever got to breed her. But that's really been like the only, heartbreak I've had with emeralds. For the most part, they've been great. I really haven't had any terrible stories to tell from that female that died was just, I think, it was a fluke thing, prolapse of all things.
Pretty bad. Like was it bad prolapse or what?
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. Never went fully back in, and then just started kind of getting necrotic. And then once that happened, it was all over.
Shit.
Yeah, it sucked. But
go with it.
It's all part of it.
Yeah,
it's gonna happen.
There's no free ride in anything you work with. Like I mean, especially if you love what you work with, it's gonna hurt. You know what I mean? It's always gonna sting. But yeah, it's kind of like, how much of this do you have in you? You know what I mean? And obviously it comes to a point where you can't beat yourself up over it. It's going to happen. Death is in all our future. Let's be honest. But with these snakes, it's kind of like, we don't know. They don't tell us what hurts them. They can't speak up and tell us what it is that's going on with them. We just walk in and find out someday. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, it is what it is. It's fucking life. What are you going to do? But yeah, I mean, I got to ask you too, Marcial, how's that snake you got from Gary, that basin?
Actually, she passed away a couple months ago. Yeah, what? She never. Yeah, she was old. She was like, I want to say she was 17 or 18 years old or something like that. No, she was 15 when he sent her here, and she had never been bred. But when I got her here, the first year she probably ate once, maybe twice, and then last year she maybe ate once. She never got into a good routine of feeding for whatever reason. Yeah, and then she rolled probably, I don't know, it wasn't terribly long ago, like maybe in the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, well, sorry, that sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
This year you're looking to have another litter though, right? Same thing, same female from last year, am I right? Or different pairings? Same
female from 2 years ago. Same pairing from 2 years ago. Yeah. And then I have a pair of 50-50s that the female is gravid also.
Wow. Well, good luck with that. That should be something. I mean, how many of the babies you have left over from last year? You sold, you haven't sold any of them, have you?
I sold 2.
Okay. From that litter?
Yeah. From the 21 litter. Yeah. I think I had 12. 1 didn't make it. Sold 2. And I've still got whatever that is, 10, 8, 9, something like that.
Okay.
I got lucky. They all ended up being heavy female. So I just, I'll keep them all. I may sell a male later. And then, if I get a bunch of females from this litter this year, I'll probably let a few go, Hey, I got to go find my laptop charger real quick. So I'll be right back.
I'll talk to Greg. Go get your charger. Greg, I have to ask you, I know right now things are limited because where you keep stuff in your room currently, the old studio. But if you were to move things and space isn't an issue, how big do you want to take the ball python? Like how many clutches in your head do you feel like you'd want to get to at some point? Or is that not even a thought right now? I'm just curious.
I'm doing this honestly for retirement income. My wife and I are both scheduled to retire next year. My wife's a nurse, and we're going to be okay financially, with our 401k investments and things like that. But extra money for like some nice vacations, and if we want to buy a new car, that's kind of stuff I want to generate some extra income for. So right. I'm really thinking in terms of a financial goal rather than number of animals. And I know you can breed fewer animals that are expensive or animals that are less expensive, but I've tried to buy in to what I would call the middle tier on ball pythons. I'm 66 years old this year, so I don't have like 20 or 30 years potentially, to build a program from the ground up. So I tried to start in it, with some mid-level animals, and hopefully that'll, work out for me financially. But I've got a target number in mind that I'd like to make, and I've been told that it's a very, very reasonable financial target. So we'll see.
And Marcial, your clutches for ball pythons stay respectfully not too big, right? Like you stay under 50, am I right? Or how many ball python clutches?
Oh yeah, last year was the most ever, and I did 26 or 27, I think. This year I'm only pairing like a dozen. So right. I'm just taking advantage of the, I've got a few really, really nice males that I made last year. And I'm just kind of taking advantage of the market being a little soft. And, I've got these emeralds that are going to be hopefully getting some babies from. So that's going to take up some time. And I'm just taking the opportunity to give those females the year off, get them nice and, very well, well fed, get them ready to go for next year. And so that I can use them with these males that I made last year.
That's what I love about the ball python game, Greg. You don't need to go crazy at all. Like, I mean, there are people pumping out 50, 100 clutches, but I think nowadays that's not the move. You don't need to do all that. It's it's too scary to have all that overhead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, I don't want to be cleaning that many snake tubs and cleaning that many rat tubs in retirement.
No,
it takes just as much time and effort to clean a $20 snake as it does a $20,000 snake. When you're talking ball pythons, yeah,
it's crazy. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just because I got into this when there were a lot of people pumping out 100, 150 clutches. You know what I mean? And just going crazy. Or look how times are right now. What is kind of shocking, not shocking, but kind of like, it's kind of like a rib in the ball python game is where you see a project that you're sought after and it just gets slashed in half all because of one person. You got one guy who's like, well, fuck, I got so much of this, 50% off, all of it. And it's like, what the fuck? Why'd you do that? And the next thing you know, everyone else is pricing at that price, but that's what makes the game what it is. You have to stay on top of shit like that. And you have to find something like a niche type project. Like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. Do you feel like you're still in control of the prices with what you work with, Marcial? Because not too many people have your type of ultramel combos going into clowns and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you look on MORPH Market for ultramel clowns, I don't think there's maybe one that's not mine. And then that was luck. I mean, back in 2013, I really liked ultramel. I had a female clown that was just sitting on the shelf, and I was like, I'll make some double heads, and got all clutch of five females that I still have today that are double heads, and trying to make the whole collection plug and play where everything is at least visual or het for one or for both. But yeah, that's been lucky, because I feel like where when I did ultramel clown, a lot of everybody else seemed to go ultra pied. And there just seems to be a lot more of those out there.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about ultramel pies for you right now, Greg, not too long ago, right? I mean, what would be another double recessive project you'd like to get your hands on, or even triple? I mean, are you considering even going triple recessive at one point? I'm curious.
No, probably eventually. Right now I'm working some Desert Ghost in.
Nice. Ooh, going on there.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of females that I got from my buddies at Spades Reptiles they're Inchi hypo pastel pieds.
Okay.
And they're some of my favorite animals.
Marcial, you have any triple processive stuff in works, or what's going on with that? I'm curious.
I do, yeah. I've got not a ton, but I've got a bunch of ultra hypo stuff and a couple animals that are. I think I have a ultra double het, and then I've got ultra. Well, this past year, one of my Herbert Bernilla, one of the guys I've sold some animals to.
Yeah.
He produced. He popped out a triple ultra male clown pied from. Yeah, so I've got pied in some of the stuff too. I've got them all. I've kind of traced back the animals that parents of what I sent him. And I've got everything that's a descendant of those marked. I just got to either get them shed tested or just figure it out, Yeah. So.
I'm glad you brought the shed testing. I mean, you've done some researching on the shed testing, Greg, so far. Like, is that something you're going to be utilizing once the time comes?
Yeah, I've got a male, actually. I've been waiting for him to shed, and he just shed a couple of days ago. He's either asphalt or yellow belly. And so I'm going to send the shed in. I'm hoping he's asphalt. And I've got some super asphalt animals that I picked up recently to go in that project. But that's the first animal that I'm going to tested. And then I've got I got a female from Aussie Boads that's possible ultra male. I'll have her tested when they don't have the ultra male test out yet, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, they do? Ultra male?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So what? Ultra male, hypo,
do they?
pied, and clown. Are those the four? Or is there more than that?
There's more than that, yeah, I think.
Well, there's yellow belly. I'm not talking about recessive.
There's more than that.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a game changer, you would think, right? With that whole shed testing thing. I mean, like, how would that be a bad thing, though? Like, and what I mean by that, it's like you have people that, like, I don't know. I feel like first and foremost, 66%, quote unquote, or 50% automatically get devalued, right? But once you have this test, it kind of changes everything, right? So can't.
Yeah, they either are or they're not.
Right, but that could be just nothing but benefit. We can only benefit from that, right? You would say.
It just depends, It depends what you're trying to do, If I've got some animals here that are pos het clown, and I'm not going to test them because I'm not selling them either way. Like either if whether they they're strong enough on the ultra male side that I would keep them regardless. So I'll just breed them to a clown down the road and prove them out. So I'm not going to worry about testing them. But they've got some clutch mates that are males, and I will test those. Obviously, figure out which ones I'm going to keep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, kind of jumping topics here, Greg, obviously a big part of ball pythons, the community wise, like the shows. Obviously, you go to shows, a lot of ball pythons at these shows, right? Do you ever see yourself at some point vending if you have that many productions? Do you feel like you just always kind of just do things from home and not have to vend?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I do vend, probably Tinley for sure.
Yeah.
But I've been going to reptile shows for a long time. I used to own a cage manufacturing company called Cage Master, and
I still have some of your RHACS, by the way.
Tons of shows. Yeah, awesome. Occasionally I hear that from people. That makes me feel good. Those melamine RHACS, as long as you don't let them fat, man, those things will last forever.
They're the white ones, right, Marcial? Those are the white ones you have? Are they white?
Well, they are white, but the ones that I have in the snake room are habitat systems. I have one set from Greg that I kept. It's my quarantine rack.
Okay.
They're not in the snake room. They're in like a guest room in the house.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about Rico. Is
But
Rico
I
one of
did-
the last? Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say, I did, reptile shows around the clock for about 5 years with the Cage Company. And then, I did tons and tons of them, during the chondro years too, although as much just an attendee having fun as a vendor. So with my back, it's hard for me to stand in one place for a long time. So I would prefer to sell from home and on MORPH Market for the most part, but I really enjoy, the social aspect of the shows. So I'll probably always attend, whether I stand behind a table for, 8 hours, that remains to be seen.
Last time I checked, the last person to ever have a display full of chondros was Rico. Am I right? Like that was like his thing. Like nobody really did it like he did, correct?
Well, we had the Chondro Coalition, which was Rico. Like five or six of us that would put together. We'd get like, I don't know how many. Rico always took care of everything, but it would be like 6 or 8. We'd get an end cap at a show, and then we would have like 100 chondros on the table.
Wow.
Yeah,
that would be sick. Impossible nowadays, probably, right?
Yeah, probably.
That's, man, what a time. I mean, that's crazy. And back then you did have you did vend back then with chondros, or no, Greg?
Oh, yeah, Greg did.
Occasionally.
Good.
Yeah, I set up with the coalition a couple of times. Honestly, I usually had almost all of my animals pre-sold. I did waiting lists and deposits and all that. So most of the time I didn't really have animals to take to shows to sell. But I would set up there with the guys a couple of times. And the year my first book came out, which I think was 2003, I mostly set up, to promote the book.
Smart. Yeah. Now I have to ask you guys this wrap-up question for tonight's episode, okay? And Marcial, why don't you go first, and then we'll get to Greg on this. If you were to start over on chondros, obviously there's probably so many things that you might want to think about what you would do differently, but what is the biggest thing that stands out to you that you would do differently if you were to get into chondros today? Let's just say that fucking Back to the Future type shit, but the knowledge never left you, right? You're a kid again, right? Well, how would you come into it with all that knowledge differently than you did before?
Honestly, I don't know that I would do too much different. I feel like I did it right from the beginning. Started with babies, raised them all up. Never brought a chondro older than a year ever, which I think is a huge thing. A lot of adults don't seem to do well when they get moved around, in my experience. Right. So if you buy a bunch of adults to try to kickstart things or get ahead, it rarely works out. I think the biggest thing is just being patient. You got to be patient with them. They're not going to breed 5 years. 5 years is maybe you could do 4, you can do 3 occasionally, but for the most part, it's 4 to 5 years of raising them up. You can't feed them too much. It's a patience thing.
So, I mean, you would kind of advise anyone to just be careful when purchasing an adult chondro, right? I mean, because some of these deals are sweet, right? And it's like, okay, but why does this person want to sell this adult chondro? You should probably think of that stuff, because I don't know. I mean, what can you expect taking over an adult chondro? Anything can happen, right?
Can't expect them to die. I know that.
And there goes your $1,500. Damn. What about you, Greg? If we kind of take things back a bit, but the knowledge never leaves you, how would you maybe do things differently if you could go back?
Yeah. So I think one thing I would experiment with, I'm not sure I would stick with it, but I think I would experiment with, humidifying an entire room rather than the daily, spraying of the cages and trying to maintain high humidity in the cages. Not necessarily right or wrong. I just think it might be easier, and it might be, a little more of a balanced approach for the animals rather than the spikes and drops.
Yeah.
Maybe a night drop also, like maintain the entire room at a minimum temperature, and then completely turn off the heat panels at night. I always provided heat for mine pretty much 24/7, except for cycling animals for breeding.
Right.
Again, maybe a little more natural approach, with the night drop. I think I would try to outcross animals more, outcross bloodlines. And I was actually going in that direction toward the last, 2 or 3 years that I was breeding. Less line breeding and less inbreeding, and trying to keep the bloodlines outcrossed. Still, you can still do designer breeding, but just maybe try to minimize the inbreeding depression. The chondros seem to get hit really hard quickly with fertility issues.
Yeah.
When they're not outcrossed enough. So those would probably be 3 things that I would focus on, maybe doing a little differently.
And where you're at, Marcial, you don't really have any humidity issues. You have great humidity where you're at, right? So there's nothing you do to your room to keep it humidified, or do you?
I do miss the cage, spray the cages. I don't miss the animals directly, but I'll just like soak the bottom, every couple days, and then once the paper dries out, I'll soak it again. But yeah, Alabama is pretty humid, except in the wintertime when it's cold and the heaters are running. If you don't in the summertime, you may be able to get away without it, but in the wintertime, if you don't have the paper wet when an animal's in shed, it's going to have a bad shed. Just because the heat's on, it's lower humidity. I've never experimented with trying to humidify the room. That's an interesting idea.
I try that, and it's a bitch. I mean, unless you have something really like big. I mean, that's
what I was gonna say. It's only gonna take something big to keep.
Bro, I was like, dude, I'm spending 5 minutes filling this shit up every day. I'm just sitting there with water jugs, and I'm like, oh, I'd rather be doing something else. But and even my room's not that big, but still, like it would keep my room at like 50, 55. And I feel like I don't know anything. I don't know what what level of humidity gets.
I'm gonna check mine right now just because I'm curious.
I don't know what level. Like right now, I'm 48 right now in my room.
75% here.
You get 75% humidity right now. That's
in the room.
That's good. I think that's natural though. I think that's just Alabama for you.
Yeah, it is Alabama in the summer. Yeah.
Ohio, what's the humidity like? What you'd have to deal with up there, Greg?
It fluctuates a lot, especially this time of year. We a couple of weeks ago we had an 80-degree day, and then 2 days later we had snow. We get this big dip in the jet stream that splits the country in half. And if I'm on the northern part of the jet stream, it's cold, and if I'm below on the southern part of the jet stream, it's warm and humid, and that can flip like every other day. And so it's great for breeding because the snakes love those pressure changes. Mm-hmm. But once we settle into the summer pattern, it's pretty humid around here. Here in the guitar shop, I have to maintain a minimum of 50% humidity year round for the guitar wood.
Oh wow!
So I use a floor model whole house humidifier that I got at Lowe's. It holds 2.5 gallon tanks, and in the wintertime, I'll go through both of those tanks every 24 hours.
Oh wow!
In the summer, I have the opposite issue. I run a dehumidifier because it gets too humid. Wow. But I'm also running a humidifier in my ball python room, and I have it set for 60%. So it keeps it like between 55 and 68%. And with that and misting the substrate, I rarely have a dry shed.
Yeah. I think it just when you could just figure stuff out like that, definitely keeps keeping these chondros a lot easier. Almost any snake, because Because I mean, I don't know. I enjoy spraying, but I also know that maybe they don't enjoy getting sprayed all the time.
You spray them directly? Spray
no.
on the snakes?
No, I mean, if they're in shed, I will. Fuck yeah. If they're in shed, I'll spray the living shit out of them. I mean, because if I don't, it ain't coming off. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's, I know emeralds. Some of my emeralds, Miss Willie lines, they don't like being sprayed at all. Like you spray them.
Yeah, emerald, they tail whip you.
No, their head. Have they done like they're like, what the fuck? Like they do like this head thing, and it's like, whoa, relax, dude. But I spray around with the emeralds. But even though it's weird because I have some emeralds, like I have this one emerald that loves drinking when I spray it. Like every time I spray it, it's chugging water, and that's one emerald for you. But then I have some emeralds that don't want to be sprayed whatsoever. So I think it's just a personality thing, to be honest. So, but yeah, anything you could do to kind of make things kind of go on themselves, I feel like is better. But also do what works for you, right? But I felt like this 2 hours went by very fast, guys. I'm not gonna lie. This was a great episode. I mean, how do you feel, Greg? We got ball python talk in and green tree python talk in. Do you feel good about that?
Awesome.
That was for you, buddy. Okay.
And we got some speckled racer talk in too.
And we
There
got.
we go.
You already have people like Patrick Holmes says he'll be reaching out to you. There's a couple other people who are going to get you these speckled racers. So this was like a huge bonus for you too, man. You're going to get these things.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Listen, best way for anyone to be on top of your stuff, Greg. I guess Instagram's the best way to be on top of that, right? I mean,
I do very little with Facebook. I'm almost all my stuff's on Instagram.
Awesome. Okay. Your link, Greg's link to his Instagram is in the description below, guys. Please go give him a follow. And then Marcial, you as well. Best way to kind of stay on top of things would be Instagram. You're on Facebook, but more of a
Instagram and MORPH market. Yeah, right. I don't do much snake stuff on Facebook.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, listen, Greg, before we let you go, we had just shy of 80 people tapped in tonight. What do you have to say to all your supporters out there and everyone who's just really just been happy with what you've provided to this reptile industry?
Love you all. I'm so honored and blessed to be able to have played a part in people's success, both in keeping and breeding. And every time somebody tells me that I really helped them get a start, that's just so gratifying. That means more to me than all the snakes I've hatched, myself. And so I just really appreciate everybody's support, friendship.
Marcial, what do you have to say to all the love and support out there, buddy? All the Red Mountain herpers, the ones who are backing you up. What do you have to say to all your supporters out there, man?
Yeah, thank you. Without them, none of this would be possible. Customers and just the support on Instagram and just in general at shows. It's great meeting people and met a ton of new people over the last couple of years. There was a spell where I didn't do many shows. And then I guess 2019 or 2021, I started doing Tinley again. And, going to Dallas this last couple months ago was one of the best times I've ever had at a show, So, appreciate all the support. And, it's been great getting to meet new people. And, it's one of the best things about the hobby. That's probably why I'll never vend again is I like, at a show, I'm rather have a Miller Lite in hand and talking to people,
Don't sugarcoat it, Marcial. Goddamn well you started popping when you started hanging out with me, buddy. Let's be real. Come on. I mean,
that helped. Yeah.
I'm telling you, because look, Bill Steele, come on, man. The Lost Boys, we're unstoppable. We have so much going on. And I just want to say, man, I appreciate both you guys just for being around for so long. If it's one thing I respect is longevity in this game. Like, it's cool if you come in and you have a good personality, you're a good people person, but where are you at with the animals? I feel like if you're going to be involved in this, the animal should speak for itself, not the person, right? So you two are great examples by that. You guys came and talked on the show, but you didn't need to have the respect that you guys have. So I just want to say from the trap, highly respected from here. And you guys are awesome. Enjoy the rest of your night, Greg, Marcial. Give it a wrap for these two, ladies and gentlemen, legendary chondro keepers and ball python keepers. Let's go.
Thanks for having us on.
All right, guys. Hey, have a good night. I appreciate you. Marcial, I'll talk to you soon. So thank you, guys.
Yeah. See you guys.
Peace out. Later. Woo! Great episode, guys. That was awesome. 2 hours went by very fast. do me a big favor, guys. I'm dead serious. Go give these guys a follow on Instagram. Red Mountain Herps, my boy Marcial, and then Greg Maxwell Reptiles on Instagram. Check it out. These two, definitely some of the best that we have in this reptile industry, and that's a fact. So I want to say thank you to everyone who spent their night with us and got to tap into this knowledge, man. I'm telling you right now, I never not learned something from these two, and thank you for everyone. If you guys do me a favor, get the likes up for these two if you don't mind. If you have not get the likes up, really would mean a lot if you get the likes up for Marcial and Greg, and then drop a comment. Go to the comment section. Let me know what you liked best out of tonight's episode, and I will randomly pick a comment and send them a sim container. John sent me like over 20 sim containers. He's like, yo, MJ, come on, man, give some out. I'm like, all right, I'll give some out. So I'm going to give out a sim container to a random comment in this episode, okay? I really mean it. Guys, go give me a follow on Instagram, Trap Talk God 619. Also follow the podcast's Instagram page as well, Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. Shout out to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, much love and respect. Give me a like and follow on Facebook. If you're looking for exclusive content, if you always want to be able to catch the uncut, raw lives that you see, because a lot of these are going to be taken down, edited, and then posted back up on YouTube. That's how it works. But I'm going to leave the live, uncut, unedited versions of these interviews on my Patreon page. So exclusive content on my Patreon. Come join the Patreon family. As soon as you join the Patreon family, you get a link to the Discord. We'll tap you with over 165 trappers. The Discord's jumping. I love all my trappers. I appreciate you guys so much. Again, I want to say thank you to the sponsor tonight's episode, Gary Shavino. Please head over to Gary Shavino's YouTube, GS Reptiles. Subscribe. Let him know MJ sent you. Head over to his Instagram page as well. One of my favorite reptile keepers, friends that I have in this game, and that's a fact. Appreciate you, Gary. Also, if you got eggs, put them inside of a sim container. Less steps, less stress. If it's a sim, it's a win. All day, every day. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your night. I'll catch you guys here Monday for New Breeder on the Block series. And that's a wrap for episode 337. Love each other. I'm out.